We are delighted to be here on YouTube for another new video and would love to grow our expanding network of procurement colleagues further following the success of our podcast, the Procurement Podcast, the Reform Rundown that we started way back in early 2024. As for exclusive content here on YouTube, we'd like to be a little more, shall we say, free and easy with our conversations, providing our opinions on latest news, which hopefully you would have seen our spotlight news videos, and topical themes from the world of procurement. So those of you viewing our content for the first time, welcome to our YouTube channel. I'm Fleur and this is Chris. And please join our community for new exclusive videos over here on YouTube.
Fleur and I are excited to be part of YouTube and providing this content. But as we've said before, this does not mean the end of our podcast series. That is going to, of course, continue over on Apple, Amazon Music, and, of course, Spotify.
So without further fanfare, we'll jump straight into our first conversational piece here on YouTube. And Chris, this was your pick of a topic, and a topic that keeps coming up over and over again. And I know it's something that you've been keen to discuss for quite a while. And as ever, you've done a lot of research into this as well.
Well, there's 2 points there for me that I want to pick up, Fleur. Of course, as head of our special effects, I'm hoping that we'll have some form of fancy graphics, a firework or two, a parade scene perhaps, especially with this being our first proper conversational video here on YouTube.
Wow, you don't ask for much, do you? I'm not sure I can achieve all of those things, but we'll see what I can add in. But we aren't just talking into our mobile phones anymore, Chris, like when we started.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, Fleur, that was so February 2024,
Oh,
isn't
February
it?
2024.
And I might add that the audio quality is on point here today. Now all we need to sort out is our clashing accents.
I can't perform miracles on that one, and that's not something we can sort out.
That's so brutal.
We just everyone's got to live with that. Essex and Birmingham. I mean,
Birmingham, how dare you?
oh,
I'm Black Country.
here we go. You see.
We're not going to get into that conversation about me calling you a Cockney, are we, again?
Oh, no.
Anyway, my second point, and yes, you're right. We brought a fair bit into the table for this one, this conversational piece, albeit the table being an artificial one. In fact, I wonder whether this whole conversation could, in fact, be artificially produced. As today, Fleur, we're going to be discussing artificial intelligence.
Yes, that's right. Your favorite ever topic of artificial intelligence. And this video is rightfully called Artificially Procured, the rise of AI in procurement.
Do you like that, Fleur? That idea, that title? It's pretty catchy, don't you think?
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. The latest craze, if you will, across the world of procurement and in business in general is, of course, the rise of artificial intelligence, or more commonly referred to as AI. A somewhat uncharted territory for us all, and with the Wild West scenario ensuring that businesses clamour to understand its capabilities and potential of making use of it where possible.
So today, Chris and I try and understand the hype around AI, the opportunities it may bring, how it may evolve the undertakings of your everyday procurement professional, and the potential risks we face in embracing an artificial environment and bringing it into the very real world of procurement.
Yeah, okay. So, unless you've been living under a rock for the last certainly year or so, it would have been impossible not to have heard about artificial intelligence. It is being talked about literally everywhere. Right now, artificial intelligence or AI is increasingly used in procurement with the anticipation that it will ultimately automate tasks, improve efficiency, reduce costs, and enhance decision making across processes like contract management, sourcing, and supplier relationship management.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there isn't a day goes by in which AI is mentioned somewhere along in some conversation that we're having. But just
Absolutely.
in case that you missed it or anything, back in episode 17 of our procurement podcast, Chris and I were joined by Ant Morst, who is a futurist and author of The Future of Us, whose book plots the advancements in technology from both a business and everyday sense. So if you haven't seen that one, make sure to look out for it or go check it out on Spotify.
Absolutely, and that's right, Fleur. And what was fascinating about that episode was, and thinking back now, as you recall, as you'd expect during that episode, we naturally touched on the subject of AI and what that could mean for procurement as a function and procurement professionals in general moving forward.
Yeah, and if I seem to recall correctly, the key message that we sort of took away from that episode was not to be fearful of it, or in fact technological advancements in general, so like how AI is advancing everything, as essentially the intention behind it is good, and to recognize that it is at its core a way to improve efficiency and allow procurement professionals to focus on essential activities where true value can be added.
For sure, Fleur, and that in fact individuals or in fact procurement professionals' tasks will change because of technological advancements. However, the view is certainly, and that as part of the episode as a takeaway with Ant, was human input, or as some might say, intervention will always be required.
Exactly. So, Chris, as you've said, and as we know, and for our conversations and how this comes up quite a lot, everyone is talking about AI, but who truly understands AI? Like,
Yeah, straight in there with a killer question, absolutely, Flo. And I think there's plenty of people commenting on social media, company websites, etc. But I think the short answer to your question as to who truly understands AI is, for me at least, anyway, nobody. But I think that that's the important thing, right? It's evolving, continually changing, and you know what? I think that that's okay. There's no need to claim that you are an expert in something such as this, where we are all learning and trying to understand together.
so that sounds something very familiar that we've been talking about for a while on our podcast episodes and other videos, but the Procurement Act, really? Like we're all learning, it's very new to everyone. We're all learning and we're all trying to understand it together.
That's not a bad comparison. It's exactly like the Procurement Act and your point that you just made there, definitely.
So, from a procurement perspective, Carmen, what's all your research that you have been doing about AI telling us, Chris? What do we need to start thinking about as procurement professionals in relation to AI? So, come on, let's get into it.
Yeah, okay. So let's think for a moment, or pretend for a moment, that we live in a perfect world where we all understand and appreciate AI, where we fully understand its benefits, its limitations, and as such, we get to use it and get the most out of it in relation to our procurement activities.
So, you mean instead of using it to create a toy version of yourself?
Have you
Laugh,
seen a
I've
lot of
seen
that
them.
recently, Blair? Have you seen lots of people doing that recently by any chance? Yeah, so yeah, that was my immediate, my thought was, are we going to be jumping on the bandwagon with that?
I haven't yet, but I know someone who's giving it a go.
Maybe, yeah. I did do one, yeah.
See, I knew you did.
I'm going to be honest, right? Okay, and you might want to bleep this out, but it looks pretty crap. So actually, by default, maybe it's pretty accurate then in that case.
I'll have to figure out how to do one. Just remind me to not ask you. But ultimately, it's all down to your prompts and how you ask them to create yourself.
Hang on a minute, Flo. Hang on a minute. I'll remind you that I have a mug right here next to me that says IT Guru.
Yeah, yeah. I did give that to you as a bit of a joke, as a saying that we sort of given you. But hey,
That's twice you've taken me out on this recording. First about calling me a brummie, and now actually challenging my IT
see,
expertise.
that's what our videos are like. Yeah, this is what our day-to-day conversations are like.
Listen, I'm gonna pretend I didn't hear that. Let's continue with this. So, perfect world scenario. Okay, so let's look at it from the following situations. Those being efficiency, automation, decision making, supplier relationships, risk mitigation, and finally, the crucial one for everybody in the world of procurement, cost reduction.
So I quite like those 6 different like situations or areas that we can look at. They can all easily be aligned to like procurement activity and what we're doing in our daily world.
Definitely. So yeah, I'm having to remind myself now what those things were. But let's start with efficiency. Let's start with efficiency.
So let's go.
Right then. So, okay. Efficiency. So, essentially, by streamlining workflows and reducing manual effort, it is understood from the research that I've delved into around artificial intelligence that AI will help procurement teams to work faster and more effectively.
Yeah.
Going hand in hand with that is it's anticipated that AI can reduce errors and improve accuracy of data and processes alike.
So I sort of hear this and sort of immediately think of like e-procurement platforms that we've all been like using in our procurement lives. When you think about it, well, we've been around long enough to see the early introduction of these within local authorities and things like error reduction and speed through self-populating evaluation score sheets, that's a word today. We're always seen as like essential benefits that these platforms would bring.
Yeah, exactly, Fleur. And almost in many ways a precursor to the introduction in AI. Although, I'm still yet to come across organisations who, I'm thinking back to the point you just mentioned there, truly use their e-procurement platforms to fully evaluate bid responses.
Yeah, it still goes back to like your human intervention point you've made, isn't it? And yeah, whether you like fully evaluate or have some online evaluation, yeah, you still need that human intervention.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, the first time I saw an e-procurement platform, would you believe? Oh my God, I'm so old, Fleur. Almost 20 years ago, it was the
You remember
first time I saw
the hand delivering of like responses and stuff and currying them to get them to the deadline and yeah,
recorded delivery and all that business.
everyone having to
Absolutely.
wait to get open them and yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that would make a very good conversational episode in the future. Actually, Flo, I mean, you looking back and talking about those sort of processes in public sector procurement, that we first experienced when we first started our
What
career.
when we were
But
young.
yeah, exactly right. So, but yeah, but 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago was the first time I saw an e-procurement platform, and you know what? I think it's trust, or should I say, the lack of trust in relation to the platform capabilities, and you can probably multiple that at least 100-fold with the introduction of AI.
Mm.
So 20 years ago, I certainly came across my first e-procurement platform. You fast forward to today, there's still features and modules within those platforms that, procuring organisations invest, pay for, have access to, and they still don't use it to their full capabilities.
Mm.
Now we're being hit with the introduction and the evolving world of artificial intelligence, and we know even less about that. And that's goes back to the point around it being at least 100-fold in relation to the introduction of AI.
Makes you wonder though, doesn't it, whether like these platforms will have some form of like AI built into them, like in the future, like in future iterations of these like procurement platforms, whether you'll start seeing AI as part of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is probably, it's inevitable, isn't it? Imagine it, something like, hey, Chat GTP, write me a specification for dot 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 X, subjects. It's, I think, yeah, certainly inevitable that's going to be the case.
That sounds quite scary. I don't think we're quite there yet.
I'm not going to make another reference to our accents, but could you imagine? Whether that be something that's a voice prompt or something that you have to type in. But I think, the time will come. But I didn't think so, although when you see that infamous piece that, online, when you search in relation to artificial intelligence around that salmon leaping out of the river, looking
Oh,
like
you've
it's been
showed me this quite a few
photographed.
times.
Yeah, it looks like something that's been photoshopped straight from a Morrison's fish counter, and I think that in isolation is just one example of
Mm.
where AI isn't quite there just yet.
Yeah,
So
exactly. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Like, I don't know, images of the operation board game for health equipment specifications.
Yes, do you know that's a really good idea for a book cover? That, but yeah, a conversation for another time. Let's move on. Let's go with now. Come on, Chris. What was the next one I mentioned? Automation.
Okay, so I've seen your notes on this one. So shall I take it, see if we can do it that way?
Cool. Yeah, you go for it.
So just in business, like in general, and from a procurement perspective, AI can automate repetitive and time-consuming tasks, which you would like you could think that would be quite good, wouldn't it, in terms of helping you do things. So such as like data entry, invoicing processing, and purchase order creation. So I guess a question is, what activities do you dislike the most that you could maybe get them to do, Chris?
I can't say all of it, can I? Yeah, I presume I can't
No.
say all of it. No. Okay, never mind. Decent effort by me, though, I guess. Anyway, do you know what? I genuinely don't know. Take data entry, for example,
Mm,
or even what we would call desktop research. It's not something you and I do in abundance these days. But again, looking back, literally just used to spend hours looking through supplier promotional material, their websites, etc., in order to build up a picture of market capabilities ahead of a procurement exercise. Is that something that you used to do earlier on in your career as well, Flo?
yeah, I mean that's a really good point. It's like your market research, isn't it? Market analysis in terms of like what's happening in the market, what are suppliers doing, and also like it can be part of your pre-engagement or formal procurement exercise, like just trying to understand like who's in the market and those type of things. It's building up that knowledge and insight, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like literally hours I would take looking at leaflets. Do you remember those leaflets? And supplier websites, and then almost transferring that data onto a huge Excel spreadsheet or a database or something like that. It was certainly a time intense, resource intensive type of activity.
Mm. But you think about it, and AI, then it's more about framing your question to get an appropriate answer, isn't it? Or collective response rather than browsing and searching for that key intel like you would have done.
Yeah, 100%. So it's how you're asking the question in order to elicit the appropriate
Mm.
details. I don't know, like, oh, wow. Find me the facilities management suppliers in the Midlands region who have won contracts with local authorities.
And sort of like punching it in, like putting it into like Chat GPT or Copilot instead of typing FM suppliers in the Midlands, like into Google, for example.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that.
So I've just given that a go whilst we've sort of been on.
Really? Okay, then, like what I've literally just said.
Yeah,
Okay, okay. And what you got?
a list of companies and a framework provider.
Okay. It doesn't tell you what contracts they've won with local authorities.
No, because I didn't ask that. That wasn't what you said to ask. So no. So, but that would be like you'd have to ask it again to add that information into it.
All right. Perhaps maybe I'm trying to be a little bit too clever here, but that's the point right there, isn't it? It's kind of worked.
Hmm. Yeah, I see that. And then you think about how much material and website you'd have to have read or visited to have even got close to having that detail without using AI.
Yeah, that's right. It helps towards getting to that end goal of
Mm.
automation, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And you know what we've mentioned that in terms of like PO creation, I'm still not sure how that will better or improve what we have in terms of existing online finance systems.
Yeah, me either, to be honest with you, Flo. And I guess it'd be about instructions for AI to sense
Mm,
check and
yeah.
auto approve these steps. I can imagine a few finance directors getting a little bit edgy about that, mind. Could you imagine? So, are we going to use this tool now to do an activity that you or your function would traditionally do?
Yeah, and even thinking back to my experience, that's going to need some convincing around how accurate like it can be in terms of doing those sort of activities.
Yeah, absolutely will do. Yeah,
Okay, so what was your next one, Chris?
I'm struggling today. Flo. I lost
Even
track,
I've
mind you.
forgotten what you said were going to be your six. So, but Better check your notes quickly.
Yeah. I'm looking all around me at the moment, but you can see how good these conversations are when you start to align them to our actual activity, or even things that we used to do previously, early in our career.
What you mean, instead of seeing articles like AI will help do this, do that, improve, and those type of things.
You mean like the sort of thing we see every day, multiple occasions? Yeah, for sure. Totally. I mean, we might be speculating here, but talking about it from an activity sense is certainly helping me.
Hmm.
Hang on.
Especially activities that you sort of know and have an understanding of, you can sort of think how it might like work
That's
or
it.
not work.
Exactly. My notes inform me the next one that we're going to have a look at is decision making.
So you had to write it down.
Old school, see?
Yes, that's right. So decision making, but we ought to
Mhm.
caveat this one, don't we?
Yeah. So, okay then. So now this isn't about AI making decisions for
Mm.
us. This is about AI helping us with decision making. So informing that decision. So such as AI powered tools can analyze a vast amount of data to provide insights and recommendations, helping procurement teams make more informed decisions.
So just trying to think of like some examples here. So how about like using what you just mentioned, like the desktop research as you called it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so if we think about like desktop research and asking AI to evaluate that data and looking at things like historical pricing trends and supplier information.
Yeah, and I guess the end goal here would be to help determine pricing strategies.
But what about like quality considerations?
And that, Fleur, is where the issue lies. Quality, as we know, is subjective.
Exactly, and that's very much from like everything that we do, like within procurement, quality is like a subjective element. So as such, then how can AI determine like quality parameters?
You think about the articles that we see on a daily basis, Fleur, and multiple occasions. Unless I'm misunderstood, it can't actually help determine quality parameters for all the benefits we read. I never see any references to things around making decisions in relation or informing decisions around quality. So, I think again, like I've just said, unless I'm misunderstood, it can't, can it?
And that's where, like, as we sort of touched on earlier, human intervention is still going to be extremely important.
Yeah, and those data analytical tasks taken care of so that the procurement professionals can focus on areas where at least in the immediate term, AI cannot support, or matters that are handled by us, mere mortals, definitely.
But you know what is really good though? Me and you naturally talk about like public sector procurement, like in our daily lives, but look at it from a general procurement perspective. You could run like spend data from your finance platform and maybe like use AI to identify patterns, trends, opportunities for savings. There's definitely potential.
Yeah, for sure. And things like, I don't know, month by month comparators. You could run contracts in terms of length based on that intel, meaning that it would align with that and what you've said by way of seasonal trends, for example, etc. And that to that end, I think, it could help predict future demand for goods and services, uh,
Mm.
ultimately enabling for better inventory management.
And potentially also like supply chain planning. So essentially that meaning you'd only be spending when you actually need to because you've been able to do that analysis.
Yeah, absolutely. And not an exact science, is it? But you could see how it would certainly support. It's not going to kill off things like, MRP or inventory management systems, though.
No, I don't think we'd see that happening. I think it's something that will maybe like enhance or complement like existing systems that people like organizations have.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of sticks with the mantra of improving and not replacing, for
Mm.
sure.
Okay, so I'm trying to think back to those six areas that you said right at the very beginning, but I think the next one was supplier relationships. Is that right?
Okay, so you're making notes as well by the sounds of things then. And yes, I've got supplier relationships too. So it is, Fleur, and probably the hardest one to contemplate
Mm.
and discuss, particularly when, I've recently done a video on supplier relationships, on YouTube, and the importance of identifying the correct approaches.
Yeah, so just on that video, it will be like linked in the description, or there'll be whichever way there'll be a link somewhere around there. But it is a bit of a tricky one, isn't it? Like supplier relationships and AI.
Yeah. So, okay, suggested AI benefits around supplier relationships are okay. Deep breath, Chris. It can help manage supply performance, identify potential risks, and facilitate better communication and subsequently collaboration with suppliers, leading to stronger relationships and improved performance. Ticks all those boxes, Flo, would you believe?
It does, but can AI can demonstrably do all of that?
On its own without human intervention? Absolutely not. No, I'm not suggesting we unpick all of what I've said there, but what if I say a few words and then you say out loud the first thing that springs to mind? How about we do that?
I hate it when you put us on the spotlight and do things like this, but go on then.
Totally unscripted, right?
Always doing this sort of thing.
Here we go then. Right, so supply performance.
KPIs, that's an easy one.
Okay. So, all right then, let's move on. Potential risks.
Risk register.
Good one for you here. Collaboration.
Oh, my favorite word, transparency.
Yeah, typical. Knew you were going to say that. Right. Okay. One last one then. Stronger relationships.
Long-term contracts.
Okay. So, what do you need to make all of those things possible?
Information and data.
Mm. And what could we use as a tool to improve or refine the quality of our information?
Okay, I see what you did there. Maybe AI.
So there's the whole point, right? So AI isn't going to replace the existing approach to relationship management.
No, because so much of it is reliant upon human interactions and building those relationships between like client and contractor, for example.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a massive fan of sci-fi movies, and again, a conversation for another time, I'm sure, Fleur. But a piece of machinery or software cannot create a relationship.
But it can improve the value of the dialogues and the discussions that take place between that in that relationship that you have with another party, or in this case, like if it was a contractor supplier.
Yeah, exactly. And you better believe that the supplier will be using some form of AI themselves.
Yeah. So next sort of area, risk mitigation. Was that one? Shall I
Yes.
have a look at this one?
Yeah. Go for it.
So let's look at like risk mitigation and just say in terms of the notes, Chris, that you sort of suggested that AI can help identify and mitigate potential risks in the supply chain, such as like supplier non-compliance or disruptions.
Yeah, now this is particularly interesting when you, in fact, do think of public sector procurement here in the UK, where, of course, non compliance could well come up within the selection questionnaire, or before you quickly correct me, Fleur, now known as the procurement specific questionnaire stage under the mandatory grounds for inclusion, or latterly, perhaps maybe within the contract performance notice.
You knew I was going to say that, which is why you, you had to say,
Quickly
pick
backtrack
up the
there,
new
didn't
one.
I?
I suppose then, like the real notable areas of benefit for procurement professionals, regardless of what sector they work in, would be like the wider supply chain risks.
Yeah, and from like a monitoring perspective, absolutely. And this could help identify risks within the wider supply chain that could ultimately impact on you and your customers or your stakeholders.
Yeah, so you can see that like being of value, but a couple of things here. Like one, you'd need to know like your wider supply chain because you need to have that understanding first to be able to like potentially ask AI for help on it. And
Yeah.
two, you'd need the opportunity of time to still keep monitoring them.
Yeah, agreed. And on that, I think we noted one more.
We did. So it was cost reduction.
Okay. Who doesn't love a bit of cost reduction? And you can imagine CEOs and directors across the business world are all getting excited over this prospect. However, I feel that there is a theme appearing here in that the suggestion is AI can identify opportunities to reduce costs through better spend analysis, contract negotiation, and supplier selection.
So what's the theme then throughout all of those?
Okay, so what have you noticed that we've identified across these six scenarios?
Yeah.
Okay, so none of those six have informed us as to how to achieve these supposed benefits.
Okay, so yeah, that's the common theme throughout. And I guess we sort of touched on it quite a few times that without human intervention, none of them could be achieved.
Exactly. You look at the contract negotiation piece, for example. What do you need to support your case in a negotiation?
I guess you'd probably want like information, data, evidence to back up like your position. But I guess that type of stuff and gathering that information could be supported through the use of AI.
Definitely. But who holds that negotiation discussion? People. That's I think that's the theme there.
Mm. So is that your closing statement then from all of this, isn't it? That AI wouldn't replace procurement professionals. Sure, it might like change the way in which we operate, in which we gather information, look at information and undertake tasks, but it won't necessarily kill off the profession because as we sort of said around a lot of this, human intervention is still extremely, and I'm going to say my favorite word because I have to get it in here somewhere, is very key to being like looking at it all. You can't not have human intervention.
Yeah, so will AI replace procurement professionals? Absolutely not. However, I feel the issue right now is that everyone is talking about AI and immediately thinking the worst case scenario or the opposite, in that it is going to save organizations massive amounts of money or efficiency savings overnight. The reality is it won't. And when you look at what's going on with, again, my research informs me, Microsoft right now and their Copilot plus recall feature, there's privacy concerns that, you wonder, this has been going on for such a long time now. Will that ever be resolved? Yeah, I mean, in fact, yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna hold my tongue on that one because I can see AI being a regular news feature in our forthcoming videos and probably as well for our podcast episodes too.
Yeah, I probably see those like forming part of like our spotlight videos where we look at the news articles. I'm pretty sure you'll find something on AI to bring to one of those videos one day. And speaking of like forthcoming videos, we've got quite a few lined up with great guests from across the procurement community covering topical subjects, best practice, thought-provoking conversations, and of course a few references to the Procurement Act as well.
Yeah. So I think, Fleur, that's the everything I was certainly intending on discussing here. So that's probably a wrap for this particular video here on YouTube. But don't forget, you can still listen to all the podcast episodes as well over on Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon too. Leaves me to ask you a question, Fleur. Would you mind closing out?
Yeah, so thank you everyone for watching this video on artificial intelligence, one of Chris's favourite topics, and he has been asking for ages to do this video, so we have finally done it. Hope if you've liked this video, please give it a like and make sure to subscribe to our channel. We'd love to have you as part of our procurement community, and of course, being on YouTube, you get these exclusive videos to your YouTube channel. But if you want to just check out our podcast episodes, they're available on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, and the links will all be in the description below. So yeah, thank you all for watching and we will see you in the next video.